edge. Do you see it? Now, that's not going to give you any insight at that stage, but it's about what happens next part that's always interesting. So you can see into this bottom edge here, complete flat bottom edge, but it's the retest there. That's the interesting part. Because when the price broke away from that bottom edge there, you can see that the price was very bullish, very aggressive. And then when we see this retest, we get this very nice opportunity to buy into that storyline, and then a level 2 liquidity to buy into this storyline here as well. So you can start to recognize some of these elements. You can start to recognize these narratives as they happen. Now, the similar thing happened over here. Take a look. See how we get 5 candles all there, and not once were they able to take the price below those 5 candles. Somebody's sitting on the book, just absorbing and absorbing and absorbing and absorbing and absorbing and absorbing into those prices. It happens when we get a single price area that seems to have that type of quality. When you see that happening, you start to recognize the possibility that there is a genuine buyer in at such prices. It's just that idea that you can see it. It's not hidden from you. It's actually visible. Now, a lot of the times if you're using time candles, you're not going to see this. Why? Because time candles, a lot of this activity happens in a non-time frame basis. Do you understand? In a non-time frame basis. But when you start looking at it maybe from a volume basis, so for example, say you did this for example is 1,000 volume. This is 1,000 volume S&P chart. Any lower than this, and you end up with a lot of stuff, right? So this is 1,000 volume S&P chart. So when you see 1,000 volume S&P, it's going to spread the trade out, whereas in time terms, it's not going to show as a spreaded out, great grammar. It's not going to show it as a spread out trade. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense to anybody? So when you look at it from a volume perspective, it's hitting, and obviously, all of those prices are just getting stuck. And it happened again here, whereas on a time candle, that just looks like a pin rejection getting tested, doesn't it? This just looks like a 1 minute pin rejection getting tested. But it's not a 1 minute pin rejection getting tested, is it? It's a series of orders that just simply refuse to make way at that particular price. Now, obviously, the challenge you've got is that when you're using a volume chart, you're giving away a lot of time detail, things like how long has it taken for the sellers to move the price, or how long has it taken for the buyers to move price. Well, we can obviously understand that there's always positives and negatives to every type of charting setup that you use. But obviously, in some circumstances, it's a useful little tool to look at as a side issue. You know, if you've got spare real estate, for example, on your screens, and you've got the ability to spend a little bit of time having a few other ideas, a few other views of the market, it's sometimes nice to have those other views, either on a 500 volume chart or a 1,000 volume chart on the S&P. It makes sense. Just remember, a volume chart in terms of the S&P, even with just 24 hours of data, is going to be very intensive on something like a Ninja Trader. It's going to perhaps crash your system. It's a very, very intensive process requirement. So, you know, just bear that in mind when you have these types of charts set up on Ninja Trader. That it's not your computer that's the problem. It's Ninja Trader's threading process is the problem. It has a real trouble making any kind of output sensible. But it just gives you an idea. But you can do this on any chart. You can do this on Sierra charts. Probably a little bit easier because their threading is a lot better than the processing. The way they process data is a lot better than Ninja Trader, of course. It's a lot faster because they don't have anywhere near the same graphic capabilities. And that's obviously something that we see as a limitation. It's a great thing for Ninja Trader, but it's also a limitation for Ninja Trader. But if you're using a volume chart, you'll see this a lot better than you will if you're using a time chart. You'll see these flat areas a lot clearer because they'll basically stick like this. They'll stick into this area And like this area there, they'll stick into this area. And when you see it consistently happening, you start saying, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. There's a lot of sells. That's not going to show up on a 1 minute pin chart. It's not going to show up on a 5 minute pin chart, is it? The only chart that's going to show up really is on these volume charts to show that there's a lot of volume that is not doing anything at a set price at lower levels. Some commercial buyer is in operation here. And if you can take advantage of that buyer, if you see that buyer coming in, boom, you can make a lot of cash off of that type of story, yeah? Make sense, guys?